Our guest, whose ability to wear many hats in the community has grabbed our attention as a Good Samaritan in the county. He's involved, he's dedicated, and he's here to speak with us. We'd like to welcome Zach Sheets.
Hello, everyone. This is Zach Sheets.
All right. A pleasure to meet you, sir. And can you tell us about yourself and what all you're involved in?
Well, quite frankly, first off, I moved up here to be financial advisor in the office here with Edward Jones. So that's what got me up here. The outside involvements that I enjoy ran the gamut from coaching Little League football, basketball at one time, softball at another time, baseball at a time, to currently president of Habitat, president of Rotary, president of the Ambassadors for the Chamber, past president of Lions Club, leadership Campbell County, and even United Way of Anderson County because they support Campbell County as well, just as a few of them.
You are a very busy man, for sure.
Well-versed, yes.
Well, it's an enjoyable pursuit. I firmly believe that those of us who have the opportunity to make a difference and give back should, because there's a lot of people who don't have the opportunity.
Very well said, and that's exactly what we look for in a Good Samaritan, and that's why we've named you as a Good Samaritan here at WLAF.
Well, I thank you for that. I consider it a great honor.
Well, we greatly appreciate that as well.
Zach, you wear so many hats, as we mentioned. So my question to you is, where does that passion and drive come from?
I guess it's what I grew up with. My dad was in the Navy, and we've moved all over the world, the country mostly, but, in different places, and seeing all the different situations that people are in. And, I've just always had, a passion for helping those who I can help. Whether it was in school, I like being the mentor to help people with schoolwork if I could. And, since that time, if there's just an opportunity to be that person who can do something different and make a difference, I enjoy that opportunity.
That's very honorable.
It really is. That's just impressive. I'm just impressed is the best word I can think of for you and the work you're doing and the pure drive you have for doing that work. So, we see you out there giving not only of yourself and your donations and time, but also volunteering sound advice within your knowledge of financial aspects. You've written articles. You've clearly dedicated the time to encompass that knowledge that you're sharing with everyone. Is this something you're also passionate about when it comes to that financial teaching you offer?
Oh, absolutely. If not even more so, because in my role as a financial advisor, I'm dealing with people's life savings in many cases. That may be a client who has several million, but it might be a client who only has 20 or 30,000, and it just doesn't matter because to them that's all they have. So that's even more important because they've put their faith and trust in me to manage their money so that they're able to reach their financial goals, whether that's college education for their kids, whether that's their retirement, or whatever other goal it might be. But that faith has to be taken very seriously that they've put in me. And I truly appreciate all the compliments you guys are spreading. But I tell you, this is a wonderful thing about this community is that when you go to these different organizations, there are many of us in this community who do the same thing. And it's just an amazing thing to see in a small community, so many people who really care about so many others.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. When you talk about caring about others, I know I've seen posts, that you've put on Facebook, the toy drive. I know you do the canned food drive and school supplies, and you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Every summer we start a school drive, and we gather supplies from clients. The Lions Club has usually helped me the last few years, and those school supplies we divide out between the 8 elementary schools in the county, making sure they each get a share of it, because while the sheriff's department and everyone else does a wonderful job with the backpacks for the students, these provide a little extra that the school keeps in the office for kids who come up in need or a teacher who needs something. So it helps them from that standpoint. The toy drive and the canned food drive, we do that with our open house right before Christmas. And of course, the Children's Center is always a passion of mine because, when it comes to kids, they're the people who you want to help the most because you can make the most difference right then. And so we've always enjoyed collecting that. And in recent years, I've had help from the Lions Club and from Rotary and other groups too with that and the Chamber. And the canned foods, this year, we really upped it and we got a lot more for Open Arms. But, I'll tell you, and this is one of those stories that it broke my heart when we went out there to deliver them after I went out there to deliver them, I should say. But it was on, was it I think the Monday before Christmas, and maybe it was, I think it was the Monday before Christmas, and they had a line so long they couldn't close for their normal hour. So, and they said they were almost out of stuff, so it was great that we had those extras. So that felt really good, but at the same time, it was sad to see that there's that many people. Because, while toys and school supplies are all that are great, but I can't even imagine what it's like to be wondering about whether or not you're going to have a meal.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sobering thought there that you, I imagine that's something you keep with you to motivate you as you're doing all this work. I think it's important that we keep that perspective. We get so caught up in our day-to-day lives and our problems, we forget that for some people, eating is the problem they're dealing with. Absolutely.
The fact that, our elementary schools have established food pantries, that tells you how big the problem is, and how hard it is for some of these students when we're talking about kids to excel in school when they go home and they're wondering if they're going to get any food, or they go home for the weekend and there's no food. Thankfully, they have breakfast and lunch at the school. But, all the little things that might annoy us in our typical day seems pretty trivial when you're wondering if you're going to have a meal.
And I suppose that's something a person can keep in mind if they're hesitant about reaching out and actually being involved in helping in these types of work. And maybe they're just thinking, I've got too much to do already. I think what you just said there is something that could kind of push them over that edge of, you have an opportunity that these people don't have, and that's enough reason to go out there and try and make a difference. And on that note, I'm curious, Zach, I know that you've mentioned the Open Arms. I know that you've also reached out to BSH Thermidor in the past, as well as Cash Express, and various other groups and organizations in the county with the work you do. Have you found over the years doing this work that like-minded people end up, as I say, birds of a feather flock together, that you find that you're not alone doing this work, that people do tend to come together to help in these things?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if you go attend some of these different groups, like I mentioned, Rotary and Habitat, Lions Club, there's a lot of crossover. You see a lot of the same people involved in the same things, making a difference where they can. And, certainly you mentioned the comment too that, I touch upon the fact that you can offer what you can. Not everyone's got all the time. Not everyone's got the flexibility. But find an organization that you care about. And it could only be, 2 or 3 hours a month. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment. But there are opportunities where you can still make a difference with a small commitment.
Yep, that's absolutely true. That kind of brings me to the question where our listeners, how can they get some information, like where to find you if they want to volunteer or connect with you?
Sure. Well, they can find me on Facebook, Zachary K. Sheets there if they want to do it that way. My office is 423-566-4010. Feel free to call, leave a message.
Would you mind giving us that number one more time, please?
Sure. It's 423-566-4010, and that's here in La Follette. I'm happy to try to connect them with anyone. Like I said, most of us know each other who do different things in the community. And if they have a passion for something, I'll definitely try to steer them towards that. Recently we, had a situation with Habitat where we got some publicity. So I've had people reach out for that. And, if someone has that passion, they like hands-on stuff, Habitat's a great example. If their skill is elsewhere, there's all kinds of different options.
That's so great.
That is just amazing, the type of person you are and the work you're doing here for Campbell County. You mentioned passion. That has come up several times in our conversation. So along with passion comes excitement. I know Renee and I have experienced that with the Good Samaritan. The excitement that our passion project is bringing someone such as you to come and be involved with what we're doing. So I'm curious, with everything you're doing to help the community, what would you say you're most excited about, if there is something?
That's an almost impossible question, because I derive a lot of pleasure and excitement and passion from my work, helping people in that regard. But every one of these opportunities to be involved in the community has its reward in itself. With Rotary, one of my favorite things is we deliver dictionaries to all the third graders. Nothing more fun to go in the classroom and joke around with the kids, but give them a book that they can use while they're in school. Habitat, handing the keys to a new homeowner, you can't even say enough about that. In all honesty, because these are people who, because of circumstances, probably never could have gotten out of renting, and they're paying more for rent, and then they get into a home. Lions Club, we do glasses and that sort of thing. Even, a perfect example, you guys, and I'll use this as the greatest example probably about this community. Back in June when we had the floods, Chet's domestic violence shelter got wiped out by the floods, and they had all these people who needed housing, who needed housewares and everything else. And all these different groups got together to help Chet because they didn't have the money, all of them. Lions Club went to Walmart and bought tons of housewares and bedding. Habitat, we had them come over to the store and gave everyone a basically $200 voucher to pick up stuff, furniture and the like. Rotary, we got hold of the Rotary Foundation and donated money from the Rotary Foundation to help them. So everyone came together to help one charity that was in need because of all these people who were in need. And I think that's probably the best thing I could tell you about is knowing that all these people who we've talked about, they all will work together to help when there's a situation. And that makes a difference living in a community where you know that's there.
Yeah, for sure.
It truly does. And just the scope of what all is possible here in Campbell County. And again, it's one of the reasons we like doing this here with the Good Samaritan is how often these things go unnoticed and unsung. And people don't realize this help is available to them, and people don't realize how much more they could be helping, by working with you all. Of course, this is a very large and loaded question I'm about to pass on to you, Zach. But could you sort of break down for us these different organizations a little bit more and what they do offer for our listeners if they're not fully aware?
Sure. I'll start with Habitat just because I just mentioned that. Obviously, Habitat's focus is to try and build a home for a homeowner who's going to put in sweat equity, and then they're going to have a mortgage-free or an interest-free mortgage to pay for the house. It's a great opportunity. Like I said, most of the time that homeowner is going to have a lower payment on their mortgage to own this brand new home than they were paying for rent. The opportunities there, we have volunteers in the store in downtown La Follette. We have board positions for people who want to be in that kind of role. And, of course, anyone who wants to volunteer when we're doing construction, that's going to be an opportunity to go in and help in the house. From the Rotary perspective, it's a lunchtime meeting. We try to do things in the community like the dictionaries. We issue grants to some of the other charities from the money we make and just look for opportunities to be beneficial to the community. Lions Club, the focus is mostly on providing glasses and help with eyesight issues for people. But again, if other opportunities exist, they do take part in those different opportunities. United Way of Anderson County does Campbell County. That's going to be more of a providing funding to different agencies. But if you had a desire to help, certainly we could find something for you because we do events over there. But the money, some of it does go to Campbell County. I guess that's a good list of those organizations right off the top. If there's something else that you're passionate about or you have an idea about, I would certainly have that discussion with anyone who wants to talk to me and, try to point them in some direction. We have CASA here in town who's always looking for volunteers, and those are court-appointed special advocates where you are trained to help kids through the process. You become that one person who stays with a kid when they're going through the whole court process so that they have one constant with them the whole time. So it's really rewarding if you like kids and you want to make a difference there. But there's other opportunities.
All right. Again, speaking of opportunities, we've talked about that quite a bit. Just to drive this home, I know this is something that when people are first interested in trying to reach out and do any sort of charity work, a lot of times they're not sure what capacity or what form that takes.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've volunteered some at Open Arms, and first day going there, I have no idea. Am I helping with computers? Am I registering people in? And I ended up in the back stalking and doing a little bit of the computers too while I was there. And I think it's important that people understand that if you are willing to help in some way, there is something for you to do. And I just want to get your thoughts on that, whether it's donating their time and their labor or resources or money, that they have an opportunity to help if they come and talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of all those different options out there, there's, I find it unlikely that there won't be something that you can help somehow because, there's always a need. And it may not be this particular organization or that one, but there's going to be one out there that's going to be a good fit for you, and it's going to be something you enjoy. And again, like, one of the key points I'll make is it doesn't have to be this terribly big commitment on your part. You may find that once you start it that you love it so much that you want to put more time in it, but you don't have to feel like, oh, I got to give up 20 hours a month or 30 hours a month. I'm afraid to do that. And like you said, for those who have the ability to financially help, hey, great. If that's your thing and you can do that, that's fantastic too, because all these organizations can use that as well.
Fantastic. That is absolutely great to know that people have that. And I also like what you're mentioning here, that if people come and talk to you, they don't necessarily have to come with a vision already. If they just have a desire to help, you can help guide them to where their abilities can be useful.
Absolutely. A great example was, again, I was talking about the recent article about Habitat. Well, a gentleman reached out to me on Facebook and said, hey, I want to help somehow. And turns out he wants to be involved in building. So great, we'll use him for that, because that's what he wants to do. I mean, we want it to be fun and enjoyable if we're, trying to run an organization. Because if you don't have fun, or you don't enjoy it, or you don't get that feeling from it, you probably won't keep doing it.
Yeah. You know what? And speaking with you and all these different, facets that you're involved in, can you give me an example of a moment that is just one of the most heartwarming stories? That's
almost impossible to pick one. I give you, like this year, our second game of the football season, and I love coaching. The little guys are great, but one of our players talked to the head of our league and the other coaches and decided that he wanted to have all the coaches and the players sign a football and give it to me at halftime for doing other work in the community. He's a really bright kid, and for him to know what else is going on around him, he knew all this, and it was a total surprise to me. So they called me out at halftime while I'm over with the players and said, come out in the field and present this football that's signed. It's in my office if you walk in right now, right there. It was just an amazing feeling, because when a 12-year-old recognizes it, that's pretty amazing to me. I can talk about all kinds of other situations. From a job perspective, I have a wonderful client whose husband passed away, and we helped her with everything, got all her stuff together. She walks in and calls me her little buddy all the time when she comes in now. It's so meaningful when you know that you've made a difference, and you've made a tough process easy for them, at least as easy as it can be. And you've made it comfortable for them where they're not worried about, am I going to have money to survive? So from a job perspective, that counts enormously. Yeah. But I'll throw one more out, and it's just a shout out to Maggie over at the Children's Center, in that, when we do that toy drive, they've got a whole bunch of other toys that people have donated and put together. And this year, when I show up and I've got a bicycle and all these other things, she's just so excited about it. And even seeing that she does this every year, that she's excited about it, you can't help but get excited.
Absolutely.
So, it's just a great opportunity. And I would invite anyone that if you can do some of these things, you will be rewarded from it. And, money's great, but the other stuff means a lot more.
I think giving really, really just is one of the better things that you can offer in life.
Yeah, and this year in Rotary, we decided to do a $1,000 grant to just buy Christmas for 100 kids. And we went and talked to La Follette Middle School, and they picked 2 families, one with 6 kids and one with 4 kids. I had the most fun going out and shopping for $100 for each kid to see how much stuff you could get to meet all the things that they wanted. And it kind of breaks your heart a little bit, because a lot of the kids, what they're asking for more than anything is clothes and things like that. Underwear and everything. But you make sure that you get them everything you can on that list, because you know that this is going to be a huge Christmas for them that they probably haven't had.
Yeah.
So any number of those would be the best.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard to narrow it down.
It really is. Picking whether it's the kid or whether it's a single mother with 3 kids who you've just handed a key to their new home, that's tough to pick which one.
Right. Yep. I would say so.
Well, you know, actually, I think that brings up a really great point as well, because, you know, those different examples you've given just cover such a wide gambit from, you know, a child just being made aware of what's happening and seeing the awareness the child already has, that they see the needs in the county that you wouldn't think would be anywhere near their mind, to someone going through a terrible crisis, one of the most difficult times of their life, and, you know, how joy can come out of that just by you being able to help them. And I think that's something that's easily overlooked when we talk about being a good Samaritan. We talk about going out of your way to help someone else. As Renee said, that is one of the greatest joys, is giving. As you've mentioned, people can look at this thing as very intimidating. I'm going to have to give up this time. I'm going to have to, you know, rearrange these other things in my schedule or whatever. But in many ways, I find that it is a more rewarding, enriching, and even relaxing experience when you go out to do work for the community than, you know, anything else you could be doing to try to reward yourself. That just that upliftment you get when you see that someone else is happy, that you see your life and your effort tangibly improve someone else's. And I just wonder how much of that you see with the volunteers you work with.
Oh, I think most of everyone in these organizations, that's their passion, and that's why they're there. I mean, you talked about being in the back working at Open Arms Pantry. I'm sure that you felt great about what you were doing, even though it's not easy work. I mean,
no, but it's fantastic because you see them, you know, coming out with their bags of food, and you're thinking, you know, I loaded that.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and you feel good knowing that you had some hand in, you know, a good thing happening in someone else's life.
And there's every possibility that if that food pantry wasn't there and you weren't helping, and all the people who were volunteering there to do that, those people would be going hungry. You know, it's truly a labor of love. And, you know, I can't speak for everyone, but, you know, the people who I know who do all these things, they do it for that reason, because you want to make a difference. It's your community. It's where you live. And, you know, you get some negativity out there. You hear about all the negatives. But the only way that changes is if everyone puts an effort into trying to make a difference. You can't help everyone, but you certainly can do your best to make a difference in the community.
Well, again, that's one of the reasons we focus on, you know, the Good Samaritan of Campbell County. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the old show MASH, but there's a line from that has always stuck with me. One of the main characters is criticized for some work they're trying to do, and someone says, you know, do you think you can change the whole world? And he says, I'm not trying to change the world. I'm just trying to change my corner of it.
Yep.
And I've always tried to live by it ever since I heard that. I thought it was really good. You know, if you just change where you are, you've made a difference. You've made it better than it was. And again, I would encourage any of our listeners that they've been on the fence about, you know, reaching out and trying to help the community. If they talk to you, you'll be able to get them there.
I'll certainly give them all kinds of different options and encourage them to come out, and even just to try it. You know, you're not obligated to do anything.
No contracts.
That's right.
Go try it.
That's
see
right.
if you like it.
Yeah, you know, and certainly if you don't like it, if it's not for you, then, you know, try something different. But the reality is, I think, and most of the people I know, if you get in there and you start doing some of these things and seeing some of the positives that are happening, that you won't want to walk away from it. You know, like I said, you know, you're going to go out there and do the best you can, and you're going to try to make a difference. And knowing that even if you change one person's life, isn't that enough in itself?
Yeah.
I would definitely completely agree with that. It's, again, I don't know if it's just a aspect of America where we always go for bigger, grander. We've had our space races and our NASCAR races and everything. We always think that things must have grandeur for them to matter, but when you do see a child smiling because they're going to get to have cake tonight and they've not had cake this year, that's such a small, insignificant thing in the scope of the world. But when you're witnessing it, that's something that stays with you the rest of your life, that etches itself into your heart. And I have found that often one of the things that will cheer me up more than anything if I'm having a hard time is going out and helping other people. When you can see other people's frowns turn into smiles, you'll find yours starts doing the same.
Certainly. If you know you motivated them, you know, I didn't mention, but doing Tennessee Achieves is another one of those easy things out there. You can be a mentor to a high school student before they get into college, and then once they get into college. Many of these kids, and touches along what you're talking about, many of these kids, and maybe I say young adults instead because they're in high school, but they don't have family members who've ever gone to college or any higher education. So having someone who is there for them to just ask questions makes a world of difference for them. And, you talk about making a difference. If you know that you helped someone succeed in their higher education and set themselves up for life, that's a pretty big thing to be responsible for. And that's another one. You're talking about a couple hours a month. It's not even that hard. So, most of these things, you can truly make a difference in people's lives with very little time on your own. And you can see it firsthand.
Well said. That actually brings to mind my other job in a supervisory role. Sometimes we'll be brought in new hires that are younger age, fresh out of high school and such. Obviously, the younger generation of every generation always gets railed on. They're disrespectful, they don't have manners, they don't have etiquette and all this stuff. And, these kids will come in to work with me and, they'll answer the phone, hey, or what's up, or what have you. And obviously your first instinct wants to just be, the younger generation. But what I have found over the years working with these younger ones is when you just take the time to explain something to them, they respond and they improve. And in those moments I've realized they've just never had someone actually sit down and talk to them. So talking about that mentoring and, just 2 or 3 hours a month, just these simple little things can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. You hit upon a basic tenet of all of this, in that, sometimes people are so quick to judge and make a decision, in this case, about a whole generation, or maybe it's people who are out of work, or maybe it's people who live in poverty, and they make that judgment. And they don't realize that, like you said, this is how they've learned their whole life. This is what they, have spent 18 years, in the case if you're working with a high school senior. They've only known this for 18 years. So for you to be there to explain, some of the things about college, be a source for them to call if they need help, be that person who's going to encourage them. Unfortunately, on the Tennessee Achieves program, some of them have parents who are telling them, you don't need to go to college. Why waste your time with that? And, some of them, it's true that TCAT is a better thing, the technical college, but that covers that too as well. So, not taking advantage of free higher education is a mistake. And there's either option for them. And unfortunately, they don't always have that positive reinforcement at home. So you can be that person. But that's also true of all these different organizations, because it's real easy to take that, they're not trying that hard, or they don't want to get a job, or any of that. But the reality is different. Yes, there are people who might fit that, but it's terribly unfair to lump everyone into that. Mm-hmm. And that unfortunately does happen, like you said, with the generations, or maybe it's, whether it's the drug use or anything else. There's a lot of people who want to get a better life and make their life better. And that's what we're there for, is to try and help in these different ways, to give them that opportunity. Because sometimes that's all they need, just a little opportunity. You'd be amazed at what some of these, and Habitat's always a great example from this, that, a single mother with 3 kids paying a fortune in rent for just a terrible house. But, they don't have a choice. They don't have a down payment to go buy a house, so they're stuck there. And, we come along, give them this opportunity, and they do everything in their power to make it work. They volunteer at the shop, they volunteer at the home, they put in all those hours, they go through training classes because they're excited about it. They're given a chance. And that's true with all these different opportunities. If you sit there at Walmart on, right before Christmas, and you're there when we're doing Shop with a Cop, the chamber helps out with that. You see all these kids and their faces are just lit up because they got to pick out Christmas presents that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I guess you can't really put a value on it, but just I would say to anyone, believe me that there's that opportunity that you can make a difference in people's lives. And by giving them a chance, they will run with that chance and make a better life for themselves once you give them an opportunity.
Well,
That's very inspiring.
Inspiring, impressive, just in awe of everything you're doing and the way that you're approaching this wonderful work for our community. As we wrap up, time slipping away from us, Zachary Sheets, can't even list all the things you are associated with. So many hats, as Renee said. But would you mind to give that phone number one more time if someone needs your help or wants to give their help?
Sure. My office line is 423-566-4010. And honestly, if you prefer to email a note to me, you can do that as well. It's Zach, Z-A-C-H, .sheets, S-H-E-E-T-S, @edwardjones.com.
Fantastic. And again, Zach, we appreciate you being here with us and being a good Samaritan here in Campbell County.
Thank you.
Definitely my pleasure. And, a shout out to you guys for the program you're running, to this radio station for all the different things it does in the community. It truly is great to work in a community where everyone from our state legislature, our state senator, our local mayors, all are always trying to help.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.